Hi. Hi, hello. I'm going to preface this with a bit of a guide just to explain what I'm doing and why, the powers that I'm using, how they work. I think the biggest factor in getting TC8 done was having the right torments. In my first attempt, I had physical damage and magical damage taken, so by the time that stacked up on the 18th floor, the boss meleeed me for 294k damage, and I died instantly. But on my kill run, I had two torments that spawned assassins when I was out of combat. So the boss had no buffs at all, he was vanilla. And it was a much easier time. He didn't hit me for 300k damage, he didn't kill me at all. Which is which is good. That's a good way to be. So other than fishing for torments in your run, the anima power that I start with is Rune Hunter. There's 8 good reasons why. The first one of those is the Rune of Hysteria. It increases your maximum runic power by 20, gives you a chance to increase runic power generated by 20% for 8 seconds. The second reason is the Rune of Sanguination, which gives you a cheat death. When you fall below 35% health, you heal for 48% of your health over 8 seconds. It makes your Death Strike into a form of Execute, where it does more damage the more health your opponent's missing. The third reason, you'll probably recognize because it's the rune that's on your weapon, is Fallen Crusader, which has a chance to proc for a 15 strength buff and heal you for 6% of your health. This actually does a lot of healing, which I don't think stacks with your weapon, as in having 2 of the same buff, but I think it increases the proc rate, but don't quote me on that. That's what I'll tell myself. It helps me sleep at night. The fourth reason is Stone Skin Gargoyle, which is usually used by tanks. It gives you 5% armor and 5% to all stats. Now, if you're still not sold, it also does these other 4 things that are definitely things, but aren't quite as awesome sounding. All this can be yours for the price of 1 anima power. So now that we're climbing the tower, the powers that we're mostly looking out for are the Lichborn synergy powers. Why? Because Lichborn auto-casts Death Coils, which not only do massive damage, they heal you. And with the Monstrous Concoction power, being healed by Death Coil will give you a 15% attack speed and damage buff that stacks twice. And with the Bone Harvester power, Death Coils will also leave a dot for 60% of their damage. The best part about this is the Lich Robe's power reduces the cooldown of Lichborn by 10 seconds every time you Death Strike. So you can see on the left the damage done chart for the final boss of floor 18 in TC8, the boss kill that will get you your mount. Top 2 damage abilities are from this synergy. What this looks like in the fight, pop Lichborn, and then during the 10 seconds that it's auto-casting Death Coils for you, you Fissure Strike twice to build stacks, and then you Death Strike, hopefully twice, depending on how many Lich Robes you have. Renew your Lichborn, so you've got another 10 seconds of automatic Death Coil casting, and then you strike off the stacks, popping the Festering Wounds, building more runic power to use for Death Strikes, so that you can cast Lichborn again. Rinse and repeat. The beauty of this strategy is that you're getting damage done from the Death Coils, the dots from Death Coil Bone Harvester, your Death Strikes, which are doing execute extra damage from your Rune Hunter, you're healing off your Death Coils, you're healing off your Death Strikes, plus the Hungerstone power, which you probably have, gives you a heal over time whenever you Death Strike. And the Death Coils that hit you give you Monstrous Concoction, which increase your damage and attack speed by 15%, stacking twice. And that anima power also stacks. For my kill, I had 5 of this power. 75% damage and attack speed, stacking twice for 150%. Another notable synergy is the Mind Freeze synergy. I didn't need this on my boss because he's pure melee, but some bosses do have critical interrupts that can one-shot you or heal the boss. The way this one comes together is the Tome of Sword play reduces the cooldown of your successful interrupts by 3 seconds per stack. Boundless Fortitude activates Icebound Fortitude every time you successfully interrupt a cast, and the Ancient Drake Breath freezes all nearby enemies for 7 seconds. So the 7-second stun every time Icebound Fortitude activates. So every time you interrupt a cast with Mind Freeze, you'll gain a 30% damage reduction and stun everything around you for 7 seconds. And with the Tome of Swordplay, you can cast that as often as you need to, so you can hit every cast. This is especially useful when you're climbing. If you get a caster in a pack, you can just interrupt him repeatedly and keep everything stunned. It also does decent damage. So that was a little anticlimactic. You can see I've still got 10 lives left. I was using the Anima power as I climbed on the vendors to buy the potions that give you an extra life, because I didn't want to fail again. That boss put the fear into me, and I was so paranoid I brought 10 lives to this boss, and then he just fell over. And there's the beautiful mount. Now we go outside to ride it. Psych, first, I do have a couple of honorable mention powers, so you can watch me suffer in my failed attempt while I explain those. The Horseman's Call power summons one of the 4 horsemen, and the cooldown is 10 minutes. Deathgate and Army of the Dead reset every floor because they're above 5-minute cooldowns. So if you use Deathgate to summon yourself a horseman tank at the start of the floor, and then used Army of the Dead on the empowered floor boss, when you got to the new floor, they would both be reset and usable. Even though the real reason that you want to use this power is because you can have White Mane accompany you through your climb on the tower. Not even kidding. Jaina? Jaina who? Save who? White Mane best girl. That's all we need. Against the bosses or elites, that's actually really good, because if they hit a one-shot ability on the horseman, at least it wasn't on you, am I right? The Death and Decay power, it's kind of a throwaway power. You get a lot of throwaway powers where your choices aren't very good, and it's the best of the shiniest of 2 turds. But if you get, say, 5 of them, that's 50% damage taken reduction while you're standing in your Death and Decay. It adds up. It's actually pretty good. And then there's the Abomination Limb power, affectionately dubbed Grabby Hands. It adds 1 second to your grabby hands for every rune that you spend. If you get a couple of these, you can keep your grabby hands up indefinitely for the entire fight. I put together some weak ores, one to track Lichborn so that I knew when the 10-second uptime window was up and how much cooldown was left to Death Strike off. Next to that, I had Grabby Hands so that if I had the powers, I knew when the timer on it was getting low, so I knew to slam some more runes. And off to the side of the character portrait, I put the Secret Spices 50 and the Rune Hunter count, so that I knew when I had 8 runes. Just a small thing with the Rune Hunter is that even though you have 8, it keeps spawning runes on the floor to pick up, and they're so shiny. You just keep touching them, even though you know you've got 8 powers, and it's not going to do anything. You just touch it. But yeah, you can find those weak auras in the description if you're interested. And now, the victory lap. Bask in the glory of your achievement. Look behind you as you pass the druid mounts, the shaman ghost wolves. Suckers. This is why we do what we do. It ain't for the money, it ain't for the glory. It's for the mount.